We would like to acknowledge that the episodes in this series are produced on the traditional unceded lands of the Coast Salish peoples, which includes the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We thank them for allowing us to be their guests.
What can an individual do about this?
Or, looking around the room is the first step. One of the reasons why I wanted to write the book was that over the years, just an observation, whether it was myself as a reporter talking to mining executives or oil and gas people or just others, was that when they get pressed into a corner, they'll inevitably default to this look around the room speech, right? And it's like, look around this room, and everything that isn't grown is mined.
This camera.
Sure. Or, like this phone. Yeah. One thing that surprised me was that, there's more than 60 elements in this phone, and most of them are mined. And the rare earths in this phone make it possible for us to makes it possible for me to hold in my hand the equivalent computing power of two 1970s rooms filled with mainframe computers.
Wow.
And it's astounding, right? And when my book starts around 1950, and around that, right up to that time, we still only used about a dozen mined things. And
sure.
Now humanity uses pretty much the entire periodic table.
Right.
And so miners are right. They're so right. When the look around the room speech, is totally legit, except for the conclusion you take from it, right? And so the conclusion that they often mean is that, so I've got this phone, and so I'm complicit in absolutely everything we do to produce this, right?
Yes.
And I should shut up or go live in a cave, right?
Right.
But I took a completely different take-home from that. And my take-home is that if we need this stuff to live, then it's everybody's business how we get it. I don't think people are going to voluntarily live like their grandparents did in rich countries. People that live in rich countries, I don't think we're wired that way. But I do think that simplifying is becoming appealing to more people. I take solace in the fact that so many young people are looking for experiences, not necessarily things. My daughter, we're going to have to force her to get a driver's license if she ever does. She has no interest in that. And so maybe it takes, Gen Xers and boomers to drive off into the sunset before it comes into view where maybe we won't need to have individual cars, people driving around. Disruptive change is hard for the mining industry because it's conservative when it comes to change, because there's the volatility of prices of metals, because on average it takes 15 years to get a big mine up and running. There's so much that can go wrong. And one thing that gives me hope is a conversation I had with a mining executive, and he's one of the most famous and celebrated mining executives and leaders in not only in Canada but in the world. And I'm not going to say his name, but I'm going to read a quote from him. So I had told him that I was researching a book about how we mine but minimize harms. And he said, and he jumped right in, he said, "We live in an insanely consumptive society, which is completely unsustainable in the longer term, as is the entire economic system driven by growth. The biggest and best solution by far is to moderate population growth and reduce per capita demand." And then he continued that we won't be able to consume metals like we have in the last 50 years. It has to slow down. We will have to choose different lifestyles or be forced to. we can avoid collapse by design or disaster, but it's gotta change. And what that quote and what that experience talking to him taught me was that, you know how I told you how if you want to make a mining crowd angry, mention degrowth. But it taught me that I can't overgeneralize about that crowd, right? Because there are champions there, and they need to be nurtured. We need to help them along the path.
Yeah.
So that's hopeful.